It came down to two finalists, the Clemson Tigers and the Florida State Seminoles. And spoiler alert, you're talking to us. You're watching us. So that means he chose Florida State.
Yeah.
Alongside Michael Langston, senior recruiting analyst at Warchant.com, my name is Tom Lang. And the Noles momentum keeps on a-rolling as four-star defensive back Gregory Thomas, has chosen Florida State. Michael, what kind of player is Florida State getting in this prospect?
Dynamic playmaker at both, whether you want him at corner or safety. FSU likes him as a corner, but he's kind of, I compare him a lot to just what he does productive wise to a guy that's familiar to FSU is Gregory Thomas. Just an athletic freak that can, do a lot of different things, breaks on the ball really well. Just a playmaker in every sense of the word. I mean, you need a tackle, you need a pass break if you need a pick six or something like that. Zay has been that guy, so certainly one of the top DBs in the country. So for FSU to lock that down, I know 98%. I get it, guys. That it was kind of what we thought it was going to happen, but I think overall just incredible talent. And just a side note, he's got some Seminole native heritage in his blood. So he's already a Seminole. So now he's officially a Seminole, announcing for FSU. But a lot of cool different stories here. He's known Patrick Surtain since he was like in the third grade, from what he was telling me. And there's a lot of ties just with that. And then just the FSU program, he felt like, this is a place that he feels the most comfortable with. Certainly, FSU has a strong history of defensive backs, and I think he wants to be a part of that.
So I'm looking at the size, Michael. We've got the clips running now. For those of you that are on the podcast version of this, we're rolling clips from American Heritage, and that's where he's from. Michael, that is, you might say, somewhat of a pipeline, as it would be understandable why he knows his new defensive back coach at Florida State and Coach Surtain, because American Heritage is where he used to be the head coach. So it makes a ton of sense there.
Yep.
I'm seeing the frame, Michael. It says 6'2" on his player profile. That looks to be correct in the highlights I'm watching. This is a rangy player,
Yep.
and maybe that's a little bit why you're likening him to Gregory Thomas, because Gregory is not a small guy.
No, they're not, and they both have great frames, and they both close on the ball really well. They're both freakish athletes, and that's what he's done. Now he is a little farther along probably than Azari was at that time, even though Azari was ridiculous. Azari started out as like a receiver, then he eventually platooned over to that DB position, whereas this is a kid that's played DB a lot. He's been around it, probably a little, the technique and is a little more fine-tuned, but both of them are just freakish athletes, and that's why I kind of compare him to some of the stuff. You watch some of the plays he does, it's very similar to what I saw from Azari when he was at Niceville. So I think certainly not a bad comparison either. Both of them are freaks. An incredible pickup for sure for FSU.
So looking again at this prospect, Michael, on 3, the industry ranking has him as a 4-star. I'll pull that back up again in a second, but the industry ranking has him as a 4-star. On 3 is a little bit late to the party here, I would think, because when you have Florida State and Clemson listed as finalists, you can play a little bit. You're likely a blue chipper. Do you think that perhaps as this process goes along and maybe some new grades are coming out, that a player who is a consensus industry ranking 4-star might be bumped up just a little bit more in the on-3 side?
Yeah, I think as the season goes on and people see him more, it might be a situation where they haven't maybe seen him as more. Although I would look at this film and it screams 4-star when I watch it. But I've seen I've seen him in person with Gregory, and I think not only I think that he'll be a consensus 4-star, I think he'll probably be a top 150 type kid for the national board of just being that type of prospect. I think people just need to see him more consistent. I saw that a lot just in different prospects that play his position, that move up as the season goes on. And I think it's really just getting eyes on him. But overall, I think that everything will bump up as far as when you look at his skill set and kind of what he brings to the table.
One thing I noticed, Michael, a couple of years ago, just general defensive back recruiting for Florida State, is that wasn't the 23 class wasn't quite as heralded as the 24 class. Not that it was bad. It's just that, the star power seemed to be a little bit more last year. But that being said, when those kids came on campus a couple of years ago, Azarie, Edwin Joseph, Conrad Hussey, I mean, Michael, these are huge guys. Like, these are large athletic individuals. And then last year you see with Kai Bates and Charles Lester and so forth down the line, they have a type at Florida State, and it is modern day large corners with a lot of range of motion. Quindarius Jones is somebody whose catch radius, I know he's a defensive back, is massive. It seems like they've got a type, and Zay Thomas fits that mold.
He does, and they like that. It's not like they exclude all the shorter guys, but when you have a multiple of skill set where you're athletic, you're explosive, you're great with technique, in your range, that can close on the ball. I think that's a very attractive quality that FSU covets, and kind of to your point, that type that they like, and he kind of fits a lot of that. So I think overall, you look at this DB room, how it's shaping up with Surtain, and I've said this before, man, the man needs to ask for a raise, because that's like
Yeah.
what he's doing is incredible, not just the development, but recruiting. He's really building the DB room, I think, the way he wants it. And if anybody knows what a DB and what you covet, and what covets higher than say a regular DB, it's Surtain, who's played on every level. He knows what works. He knows what can really put a lot of pressure on an offense, when you have guys that can range, can tackle, can explode for big plays. And I think he's certainly executing that deep room the way he wants it.
Self-edit quickly. I know that AZ was class of 22. I get that. It's just there's a list of guys, and I put the wrong one out there. But Michael, in terms of, okay, now he's committed. Zay Thomas is aboard. He's a part of Tribe 25 for the moment. Does this seem like a candidate that would stick? I mean, there are some kids that it's going to be, and you mentioned it on your live show this week, that everything's a fight. Everything's always a fight to the end.
Yeah.
But all things being equal, is this the kind of kid who's, okay, this is going to stick, and he's going to be signing on signing day?
It would be the one that I would feel one of the most comfortable with, just because one of the relationship, the product on the field is really good, so you don't have to worry about too much of what the product is. I'm assuming FSU will probably have a pretty good season, and just the relationships are so deep and set in, and what FSU does with defensive backs, I think this is one that you feel pretty comfortable with. As I said, but in the chat, every recruitment's to a certain degree is open, but this is more of a kid that's very loyal. He's thought long and hard about this decision. He hasn't even really named a favorite, through the process, but I think he's been very respectful to every school, giving everyone a chance. And I think, when he committed, I think it kind of solidified, like, yeah, this is where I plan on being.
For more recruiting intel on Florida State's efforts, and it's about to be really, really busy throughout the month of July and into August, make sure that you sign up for Warchant.com. Head over to the Premium Recruiting Board. That is the land that if there's somebody who rules the land, it's Michael Langston on the PRB at Warchant.com. Remember, if you're watching us now and you've not been to Warchant.com before, use code FSU1, FSU and the number 1 at checkout for $1 for 2 months. 2 months introductory stuff at warchant.com. You're going to love the information that Michael provides. Michael, thank you. Florida State gets them a new one. We will talk to you next time on Warchant TV. I'm sure we're going to be doing a few of these around July 4th.
I hope so.